It's absurd. It is a caricature of colonialism. We don't need this kind of colonialism. What we need is a state of Palestine living alongside the state of Israel. He is a murderer and a liar and a thug. It's enough. It's time for two states living side by side as the will of the whole world wants.
Jeffrey Sachs just exposed Trump's Gaza plan as a colonialist scheme. In this video, he gets into why it's designed to fail, actually, if the purpose was supposed to be to establish peace between Israel and the Palestinians, and also why this seems to be an underhanded way to allow for corrupt economic development by Jared Kushner and Tony Blair. Let's get right into it. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
The Trump government, facing its isolation, has put forward a plan, a so-called 20-point plan. But it prevaricates as usual. It says many right things, that the fighting should stop, that there should be an immediate release of the hostages, an immediate release of Palestinians who are held by Israel, that there should be immediate humanitarian aid. All of that is fine. But when it comes to every political question, well, it basically keeps the colonial structure. That is the structure put in place by Britain and the United States as the colonial overseers, and now enforced by Israel as an apartheid state ruling over the Palestinian people. In other words, it ducks the question of the state of Palestine. It recognizes somewhere that, yeah, that's an aspiration of the Palestinian people. Well, that we needed a president of the United States to tell us in a peace plan that that's an aspiration of the Palestinian people. Instead, what the plan does, together with these right things, ending starvation, ending the fighting, release of the hostages, release of Palestinian prisoners being held by Israel, all good, it establishes another colonial structure.
Yeah, and it doesn't even basically try to hide that. If you actually look at what is contained by this, Gaza will be governed under the temporary transitional governance of a technocratic, apolitical Palestinian committee. But then they're talking about a Trump economic development plan here with a special economic zone with a new board to be created headed by Trump to oversee this development. Hardly an impartial arbiter and desirer of peace when he's tied at the hip to Netanyahu. And what's so crazy here is in point 16, I think this is one of the most insane ones. It basically says that Israel will not occupy or annex Gaza unless they have determined, that's Israel and this new committee, the ISF, that the U.S. will create, have determined that Hamas hasn't disarmed. So if there's one last Hamas soldier that doesn't disarm, or they claim that it is, they can continue to occupy or annex Gaza, unfold those plans as they talk about. And the only arbiter for this is Israel and the United States that have kept this struggle going for the benefit of Netanyahu and his desire for greater Israel. So that's what we get out of this agreement. I will say Hamas kind of called the bluff of Netanyahu to always talk about how much he wants the hostages released, even though he doesn't. That serves as the justification he uses for ethnic cleansing in Gaza. But they called their bluff. They said, hey, we'll release the hostages. We have some issues with some of the points on this, but that part we agree to. So that's interesting to me too.
A committee that Donald Trump is going to chair and that Tony Blair is going to sit on. So it's literally the British American colonial system, which has been in place since 1921, when Britain took over Palestine after World War I, and with the United States being the great enforcer, and without any honesty or clarity about the fact that you want peace, you make a state of Palestine like the whole world wants, other than Israel and its wholly owned subsidiary, the United States. but then writing in these absurd sections, which it looks like a caricature of colonialism. If I could just read just a piece of it. Point 9
Sure.
of the plan. Gaza will be governed under the temporary transitional governance of a technocratic, apolitical Palestinian committee responsible for delivering the day-to-day running of public services and municipalities. The committee will be made up of qualified Palestinians and international experts with oversight and supervision by a new international transitional body, the Board of Peace, which will be headed and chaired by President Donald J. Trump, with other members and heads of state to be announced, including former Prime Minister Tony Blair.
Tony Blair, the butcher of Iraq, totally complicit in the war on terror, siding with George W. Bush on that invasion in 2003, heading this new economic development. He's going to have power to bring about this new Gaza Riviera that Trump talked about, along with his buddy Jared Kushner. They want lucrative, corrupt contracts with personal relationships to the president, Jared Kushner being his nephew, to redevelop Gaza. This reeks of corruption, this reeks of colonialism, and not an interest in guaranteeing peace. If there is an interest in guaranteeing peace, this would enact either a Palestinian state or a joint state in which Palestinians have equal rights with Israelis. That has been taken off the table, so there's no doubt that most Palestinians would have a problem with this.
This body will set the framework and handle the funding for the redevelopment of Gaza until such time as the Palestinian Authority has completed its reform program, as outlined in various proposals, including President Trump's peace plan in 2020, and can securely and effectively take back control of Gaza. This body will call on best international standards to create modern, efficient governance. A Trump economic development plan, a Trump plan, this is now point 10, to rebuild and energize Gaza, that's the Jared Kushner Riviera plan, no doubt, will be created by convening a panel of experts who have helped birth some of the thriving modern miracle cities in the Middle East. Many thoughtful investment proposals and exciting development ideas have been crafted by well-meaning international groups and will be considered.
Yeah, this is what Trump cares about, by the way. Lucrative economic contracts rather than peace. He does not care about peace because Netanyahu, his best buddy, doesn't care about peace. And Netanyahu waltzed into the UN with the rest of it walking out, except for the Israeli delegation, saying there will never be a Palestinian state. That's why it's out of this agreement. So even if this agreement is accepted, this does not guarantee peace. And Hamas is, I think, right to focus on the hostage issue. We'll release the hostages, just like they did during the first ceasefire, which Netanyahu violated, not Hamas. And, this should be seen for what it is. It really is a demonstration that the Israel lobby controls this administration, controls our Congress. There's no interest in peace. It's just corruption.
A special economic zone will be established with preferred tariff and access rates. His favorite word, except this means zero tariffs and access rates to be negotiated with participating countries. It's, by the way, it's absurd. It is a caricature of colonialism. Donald J. Trump is going to chair this committee.
Yeah, he's trying to carve this up like China was carved up by the British after the Opium Wars, to carve out these spheres of influence from the United States, not under free exchange through government coercion and government force, government power, government central planning. That is what it is. It's to choose special developers, not because they happen to serve, the people that want their products or services better, but because they have ties to the government. That's what this is. We should see through this totally. I think Sachs is right.
And along with Tony Blair, the butcher of Iraq.
Exactly.
Why would Hamas accept this?
I don't know what Hamas is going to do. I can't imagine why any of the countries that met with President Trump last week would actually accept this for one moment. It's absurd. And I think that should be understood one very important point. The Palestinians, despite decades and decades of abuse and occupation and apartheid rule by Israel, have an extremely well-trained professional cadre. Many of them, I don't know if it's most, but many are working in the Gulf countries, in the Middle East, many in the United States, many in Europe. They've not had a possibility of pursuing their professional lives in occupied Palestine, but they are skilled, they are highly educated, they are great professionals.
Yeah, they've been under subjugation for almost 60 years, 58 years since the 67 war from Israel. You know, it's not true that they just pulled out in 2005. They kept the blockade in place. They kept the destruction of the rights of Palestinians in place. They kept control over resources and water, denied the right of return, denied property that had been stolen from them, the displacement of peoples in the Nakba after 48. This is the lineage, this is the record, this is the heritage of this Israeli government. And hey, if you look in the points, the last point says that the United States will establish a dialogue between Israel and Palestinians to agree on a political horizon for peaceful and prosperous coexistence. There's nothing actionable there. There's nothing to do with a Palestinian state. It's an ambiguous statement that's nebulous. It doesn't call for any kind of specifics about what this horizon will be. And Netanyahu's denied that there will be a Palestinian state. So this can't be palatable to most Palestinians. I can't think it would be. Outside of some stipulations that Hamas wants to do, like stop the genocide.
The Palestinians don't need the tutelage of Donald J. Trump and Tony Blair. The Palestinians don't need years of trusteeship. What is this? Is this 1920? Is this the mandate period of Britain? Or after 120 years, aren't we a little bit beyond such vulgarity and such overt colonialism that Donald J. Trump will govern the board of Gaza? Come on.
I mean,
we don't need
colonialism. Really means subjugation, almost a form of slavery.
Well, of course it does. And the idea that the Palestinians need years of tutelage before they have self-rule, let's just say they've been waiting many, many decades. And after all of these abuses, they don't need years of tutelage. They need their sovereignty.
Yeah, they sure do, just as all peoples do. And I would even go further than this and say individual states and localities within the United States need their sovereignty in the face of an overarching U.S. government. But in the Middle East, you have this as a major problem for 60 years. And the Arabs created their own peace plan in 2002 in Beirut. It was from the Beirut Summit. It was a 10-sentence plan that basically called for the establishment of a Palestinian state and normalized relationships between Israel's Arab neighbors with Israel. So guaranteeing peace and having a Palestinian state. Now, I'm not a fan of states in general, but next to genocide, I'm much more supportive of a state that could yield actual sovereignty and actual peace between peoples. Netanyahu and the Likudniks have taken that off the table, but that is what the Arab partners want. They don't say we only want one country that's just Palestinians and wipe Israel off the map. That's not what's said. That's all propaganda from Netanyahu.
It's very straightforward. It's not even hard. But right now, because Israel rules by force and by murder, it turns on and off any financing that goes to the Palestinian Authority. It literally turns on and off the water or the electricity or any other public service. It completely restricts the freedom of movement of people. And in Gaza, it was run like an open air prison, as it was widely described. People could not come and go. People could not trade. They could not do their business. We don't need this kind of colonialism. What we need is a state of Palestine living alongside the state of Israel.
Yeah, I'm for that. I could also buy into what Max Blumenthal recommends, and that's a single unified state where Palestinians have equal rights, which they don't right now. And there's the blockade, the embargo, the aid blockade, Israeli central planning and control over electricity and water to turn it off and on. You know, a denial of basic rights of the people. Look at disputes that are adjudicated between Israelis and Palestinians, by the way. If you don't believe me on this, there's been lots written about that. It's a denial of rights, and if they all have the same rights, then maybe that would be palatable too. In some ways, Max favors that. I think it's at least worth exploring too, in addition to this two-state solution idea, which seems to be taken off the table, but I do think that's what it might take to fix this thing.
I sit with the ambassadors and the foreign ministers. I listen to the governments. I talk to the people of the neighboring countries. I visit the neighboring countries. It's totally false. What they want is the wars to stop in their region so that they can have economic development, so they can worry about the water crisis, so that they can build infrastructure. That's what they want. They don't want all these wars all the time. But Israel has been fomenting wars all the time.
Yeah, who's been attacking countries in the Middle East? Is it the Arab neighbors of Israel, or is it Israel? Because it's Israel. They've attacked 7 countries since October 7th. Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, Iran, Qatar, I'm forgetting one, but now they've opened up this new war against the United States and imposing censorship by applauding the acquisition of TikTok, saying, hey, we need to talk to Elon Musk to censor users on Twitter. That's what the implication is there. We need to get Barry Weiss to head CBS. We need to have a $7,000 per post influencer program to disseminate Zionist propaganda. This is the 8th front in their war. But in the Middle East, it's Israel attacking basically all of their Arab neighbors. Iraq, too, by the way. So that's what you have.
In order to avoid the obvious, a state of Palestine, and Donald Trump plays along with this.
Here's what Prime Minister Netanyahu said yesterday, October 5th, about the real path to peace. Chris, cut number 3.
If you want a real path to peace, then the Palestinians have to come finally to recognize and accept the existence of a Jewish state in their midst. And that hasn't happened. That's why we don't have peace here, because they refuse to, they don't want a state next to Israel. They want a state instead of Israel. And once any territory they get, they use to attack us again and again. If we don't change that, then then this conflict will continue. If we do, we are able, with the plan that we have for the day after Hamas in Gaza, if we are able to change that, that goes a long way to securing a long-term peace.
Respond to him.
He is an outright liar, period. Because what the Palestinian and the Arab peace plan and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation and the UN General Assembly have said, and said for years, is 2 states, a state of Palestine and a state of Israel, living side by side on the borders of the 4th of June, 1967.
That's exactly right. This was sheer lies and propaganda from Netanyahu. Like I said, in 2002, the Arab leaders have come up with this peace plan that acknowledged 2 states, not a state instead of Israel for the Palestinians. That's bogus garbage. It's Zionist propaganda, Hasbara, that is meaningless. And sure, are there extremists that want that? Are there extremist Hamas fighters that want that? Yeah, there are, but in the official capacity, and even from the Palestinians, it's the 2-state solution, which is the ostensible goal. That's the goal that Arafat talked about. That's the goal that the Palestinian Authority talks of now and suggests. And by the way, they're being pretty freaking charitable to start those kind of ideas and those kind of plans on the basis of having only about 22% of the land that Palestinians originally had before this treacherous experiment in 1947 and 1948 to create Israel and to rob the Palestinians of their land. It's pretty charitable to start out with the idea that, hey, 22% of the land, we would take that, even though it still represents robbery and isn't justice.
And what Netanyahu said last week, at the General Assembly, clearly, everybody should read it. He said, never a state of Palestine, period. He is a murderer and a liar and a thug. It's enough. It's time for two states living side by side as the will of the whole world wants. And it's time for Donald Trump to be honest and just make it possible for there to be peace and to end these lies of Netanyahu, which are sheer and total lies.
Yeah, I have to agree with him there, and I agree with almost everything that Sachs said, but at the same time, I kind of agree with Dave Smith, too, who in his episode last night talked about the fact that he was a little bit surprised that when Hamas, instead of accepting this deal, came back with saying, let's have this counter proposal. I agree to some parts of your deal, including releasing all the hostages, which again is what Netanyahu and the Zionist propaganda leads with. Just release the hostages. We'll do that. We have some problems with some of these other stipulations, and maybe we can work through them and come to some sort of agreement. That Trump's response to this could have been like, oh, they're not taking the deal. We have to keep, supporting Israel, give them as much intelligence and bombs as they want. Let them continue the ethnic cleansing. He wouldn't put it that way, but that's what they're doing with U.S. aid. And instead of that, Trump said, Hamas is ready for peace. And he truth socialed, Israel, stop the bombing of Gaza. Did they stop? No. Of course they didn't stop. And is Trump going to use any leverage to punish them? Is he going to withdraw any aid? Is he going to recommend his allies in Congress try to drum up legislation to do that? No, of course not. They could annihilate Gaza with nukes and the U.S. would probably still continue giving Israel aid. But at the same time, that's an interesting response because it's pretty clear to me that Trump, while wanting this relationship with Israel to last almost no matter what because of the influence of the Israel lobby on him, Miriam Adelson gave him $100 million by the way. But he does want to get away from having this Israel-dominated mentality in the news and the culture spilling over into, dividing his base against each other, where part of his base is pretty non-interventionist and doesn't want, Israel to be at the forefront, especially when the cornerstone mantra of your platform is supposed to be America first. And then some other parts of his base are very pro-Israel and very supportive. Pitting those two forces against each other at a time in which Democrats are fighting him too. He wants to escape that, I think, in some ways, despite obviously being beholden by the Israel lobby. So we'll have to see what comes from this. I am not viewing this as a very promising agreement. I think that there's still time for Netanyahu or Trump to say, hey, they had the deal, they didn't take it, we're going to continue supporting Israel and continue supporting the destruction and bloodshed and murder in Gaza. And by the way, while we're focused on that, Israel is going to, maybe annex the West Bank and draw us into a new war with Iran while we're at it, by the way. That could be a course of action. I'm trying to retain some hope here given Trump's initial response, but I don't think it's too promising for all the reasons that Sachs gave. It seems like Trump is much more interested in economic development and corrupt crony contracts to Tony Blair and Jared Kushner than he is actually establishing peace in the region. A lasting peace. That's what it seems if you just read these points. And there are 20 points. You can read it. I was displaying a version from the BBC, a transcript, but you can find this basically anywhere. But I do want to hear from you. Do you think this peace plan is promising? Do you think this is just a colonialist scheme? Let me know down in the comments down below. Is Jeffrey Sachs correct or off about anything? Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. Also, subscribe to Judge Napolitano. This was an awesome interview. Thank you, Judge. And if you like this video and my commentary, please click the join button below. You can help support the channel. That would mean the world to me financially. I'd tip my hat to you and I'd thank you. And as a return gift for that, I'll give you access to all my videos before they go live to the general public on YouTube. Those are the ones that show up as members only right now. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.